by what standard do you as a Protestant have the right to say these people are wrong and you're right? Are you going to borrow from my worldview and say the early church condemns it? Because you can't appeal back to the Bible as your standard. That's a circular argument.
Tiny little thing, tiny little anecdotal kind of thing, but it speaks maybe to a larger issue. Many years ago at a church I was at, and this is not to criticize this specific thing, but it's just representative. There was a decision to stop preaching from the pulpit and instead preach from the stage with a more portable music stand, as opposed to preaching out of the pulpit. It was a historic Protestant sanctuary, so that the pulpit is elevated and it's this big round chamber and so forth, all of which was historically done for a specific reason. But the decision was made to move. Now, I think the intention and motive for this change was probably had a lot of good in it. I think the desire was to decrease distance between the speaker and the audience, and to try to create more intimacy and more availability and make it and so forth. There's some good in that, right? And I'm not a legalist about this. I think God, you don't have to have a pulpit. I think the outdoor preaching during the Second Great Awakening, which was so controversial, God used that powerfully. But I'm just saying, having pulpit.
See, even when he tries to critique a certain Protestant way of doing church, he's like tiptoeing around it. Well, if there's like a good reason for doing it, because there's no concrete standard that Protestants abide by. It's just up for interpretation how you wish to worship and conduct church service. If you make a good, scriptural case for it, whatever that means, then all right. That's why you have LGBTQ affirming Protestant churches that you might think like, oh, well, this is a bit of a reach, Val. But it really isn't, because the Bible in the Protestant worldview is up for personal interpretation without any guidelines from church tradition or the fathers. I mean, I've read multiple excerpts from the works of Lutheran biblical scholars and theologians arguing from the Bible, appealing to the Greek, why homosexuality isn't a sin, right? They give like a historical case that Paul actually means homosexual prostitution as it was common in Rome, and how the word arsenokoites, right, arson meaning male and koite meaning bed, isn't referring to consensual same-sex relationships. It's actually talking about exploitative or abusive sexual practices, as the usage of arsenokoites in Greek literature in the ancient world is not entirely clear. I mean, just a bunch of nonsense, right? Because the church condemns homosexuality. I, as an Orthodox Christian, don't care what your interpretation is. It doesn't trump the authority of the church and the apostolic canons that condemn sodomy. But by what standard do you as a Protestant have the right to say these people are wrong and you're right? Are you going to borrow from my worldview and say the early church condemns it? Because you can't appeal back to the Bible as your standard. That's a circular argument. The very thing in question is the standard for the interpretation of the Bible. So Gavin, why do you care if they remove the pulpit in the church? They have a good reason for it, and they justified it based on their reading of the scriptures, and they have a strong conviction. That's good enough in your worldview. Why do you care? You see how problematic that is? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, comment, and subscribe for more, and follow my social medias in the description below. I'll see you next time. God bless.